describe it, mate. Yeah. Came from absolutely nowhere.
Cruising along nicely.
Trying to hook up with the next good pup on the left edge here. Winning group's established a clear superiority at the moment.
Nicely executed by Winning Group, but also nicely done by John Winning Senior of Yandu.
And it's a warm welcome from Sydney Harbour for the first two races of the Australian National Championships in the 18-footers. We're looking there at the starter's boat, which is showing us its course 6, and it's 3 laps of a windward leeward course. A lovely sou'easter prevailing here on the harbour for this championship in 2019. And alongside me is Olympic silver medalist and match racing skipper of great note, Olivia Price. You must be looking forward to what should be a tremendous day. The big rigs are out, Olivia.
Yes, Gordon, it's a fantastic day on Sydney Harbour. We were unsure whether this wind was going to come in today, but we're seeing anywhere up to 12, 13 knots of breeze, settling in at around 10 knots from the southeast. As you said, so the start boat had a bearing of 145, so quite east in what we expected to have a southerly that was forecasted. It's going to be a little bit unpredictable. There will be a lot of shifts and a lot of pulsing in the breeze today. It's a little bit stronger than forecasted, as I just mentioned. So whether this holds in or not, I'm not sure. We have had an opening of the clouds, so basically the wind can come through a little bit stronger for those periods of time. But there is a lot of cloud around Sydney today, so we'll just see what happens on the harbour.
Yes, well, the entrants are going through their preliminaries at the moment, and I see that we have a total of 9 races in the Australian Championship conducted over 6 weekends. Races 3 and 4 will be conducted in a fortnight, and then that will be on February 2. And then eventually we get to the J.J. Giltnan Trophy, which is the World Championship, and that's from March 14 to 22. 9 races over 9 days. And that is really going to be something to look forward to. And that is very much, I guess, the focus, Olivia, of a lot of these skippers and crews here today, building up to what will be a crescendo in March.
Yes, definitely. We did a bit of a boat park walk this morning and this afternoon, and a lot of these crews are basically fully strength. So they do have their race crews on. Earlier in the first half of the season, there's a little bit of chopping and changing as people start to figure out who they're sailing with and what their strengths are. But today really is the first day of the Australian National Championships, and it means that everyone's bringing their A game. They've all got big rigs on, and we've even got 18 starters, although we've got 19 because there's one addition of a Queensland team that's come down for today.
Yes, that's Smith Lamnalco, and they'll be just tuning up and getting used to the conditions here on Sydney Harbour. But once we get to the J.J. Giltnan, we understand there are going to be 4 Queensland boats competing, which will really add to the occasion.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just the Queenslanders that will join this fleet here in Sydney. There's a bunch of internationals that also make their way here, and they'll be here over the next month, 2 months, really trying to get used to Sydney Harbour, because it really is a fantastic place to sail, but there are a couple of tricks and you do want to know them.
Well, I know you've sailed many times here on the harbour. You know those tricks, and you're going to provide the expertise today to take us through the race. But looking at the form for the opening 2 races here on the 19th of January, who are your boats to beat in this first race?
I think there's a couple. I was talking to Dave the bookie about who he thought were favourite. There were at least 4 boats that he had as favourite. We've definitely got Tech 2 on your screen now. Jack McCartney, Charlie Wyatt, and Trent Barnabas, yes. So they're very established sailors in their own right. And then you've got awesome crew work as the team sailed together last week for the final heat of the New South Wales Championship and absolutely blitzed it. So today they'd be one of my picks, along with a couple of others, but Winning Group has been in fine form. Although they have a new skipper on board, Sevi Jarvin's stepping back one position. Herman is overseas in the US at the moment, doing some work stuff. So
not a bad replacement at the helm.
And they've got Ash Rooklin on board along with their normal bowman of Sam Newton.
So that's Winning Group, Winning Appliances, and also Tech 2, who's aquaplaning downwind at the moment. But yeah, who else? Any dark horses in the fleet today?
There's plenty of dark horses in the fleet today, one actually being named dark horse on the new Bird and Bear boat. So as they're just about to come into view to the right of our Ronin camera, we've got Tom Clout skippering his boat, his brand new boat, for the first time today. They had a little bit of a few weeks of getting the boat ready back in the shed, and then Tom was unable to sail for the last few races. But we've got the dark horse doing main, who's Nick Daly, and then we've got John Walton in the bow. So it's the first time they'll be sailing with their total crew all together.
Yes, well, you mentioned dark horse Nick Daly. I understand he makes most of the sails for these 18-foot skiffs. Is that correct?
He makes quite a lot of the sails in the fleet. He's a sailmaker by trade, and he's made the sails on board his boat, which you can see. They're just doing a couple of fine tunes to the rig at the moment, making sure that they will be in range. Alongside the dark horse sail making, there's also the North sails and the Doyle sails, and they're basically the other two markers that are doing well. And
Tom Clout, Volvo Ocean Racer, former main sheet hand on Scallywag with David Witt, and of course JJ Gilton, winner as main sheet on Channel 7. So as you point out, there's a lot of experience there. So just repeating that this is the opening race of the 2020 Australian Championship, which are going to be conducted over 6 weekends, 9 races in total. And then from March 14 to 22, we have the JJ Gilton Trophy for the World Championship, a time-honoured trophy. And Olivia, I guess we've come a long way from the early days, back in the 19th century, when we had crews of 10 to 15 on Sydney Harbour.
Yeah, I can only imagine what sailing the 18s was like back then. These days a lot of modern technologies come in over the last few years with carbon fibre, as well as the shape of the sails and the wings getting further momentum out. With righting moment. So there's 3 athletes on board these boats. There are a lot of professional sailors in this fleet, and as it's commonly known, you're no one in sailing till you've sailed an 18-foot skiff.
Well, I've certainly yet to make my debut. And that's a familiar sound of a Sydney Harbour ferry. It wasn't the starter's boat. But talking of the birth of the 18-footer as we know it today, it was instigated by a Sydney businessman, Mark Foy, back in 1892 here on the harbour. And we all of my generation remember the famous Mark Foy department store. But basically, Liv, he wanted racing to be a spectacle and spectator friendly. And his early 18-footers, they carried crew of 10 to 15, but the rival, the New South Wales or the Sydney Flying Squadron, some of their crews were up to 24 and 25 Whoa. On racing boats on the harbour. But obviously you didn't get the spectacle, you didn't get the speed, and with the light skiffs and the massive sail areas able to really fly downwind, it just attracted and was a magnet for the crowds that really turned out on Clark Island and around the foreshores, and it became very much an iconic adventure, as it has been now for well over 100 years.
Yeah, it really is iconic, iconic racing on iconic Sydney Harbour. I know I spend pretty much every Sunday during the summer out on the ferry watching as a spectator sometimes wishing I was out there, sometimes not. Today I think is one of those days. We've got a beautiful, 10 to 13 knot southeasterly breeze. Reminder that we have 2 races today. So it's the heat 1 and 2 of the Australian National Championships. And at the moment we've got a windward-leeward course with 3 laps. So there is a top mark further up into Rose Bay. We're sitting kind of in the main channel here of Sydney Harbour, just to the northwest of Shark Island. So that's where our start is. And then we have the top mark up in Rose Bay. And there's our 5-minute gun.
So the 5 red flags signified on the starter's boat. There they are, the 5 small red flags, and less than 5 minutes remaining to the start of race 1 in the first race of the Australian National Championships for 18-footers. And looking at our fleet of 19, we have appliances online: Brett Van Munster, Bird and Bear, Tom Clout, Birkenhead Point Marina, Tom Anderson, Dalzotto, Jack Sprague, Finport Finance, Keegan York, Ilvi, Pedro Vazzoni, or Vazzone, Noakes Blue, Yvette Heritage, the only female skipper in the race, and she's a great story, Olivia.
Yes, Yvette is a lovely girl. She's so nice, and she's really giving it to these boys in this season. It's her second season sailing the 18s in a row, so she's had a bit of momentum and confidence, as well as actually sailing over for the Mark Foy International Trophy in Lake Garda last year, and that's where she had a bit of a conversation with Noakes Group, Sean Langman, about sponsoring and getting her a bit of a better boat for this season, and it's really paying off with Rory Hunter and Ollie Scott Mackey in the boat in front of her.
Yes, well, hopefully we'll get to see her. She's a senior geotechnical engineer specialising in underground coal mining, and she's a very talented sailor, and as you mentioned, along with Rory Hunter, a main sheet hand, and Oliver Scott Mackey, the bowman, they've really caught the eye and could easily upset a few predictions here today.
Yes, they said that they wanted to get top 10 in the New South Wales State Championships, and they got 10th. So they've readjusted their goals for the National Championships and are looking to maybe pick up 1 or 2 positions. Now, I think that they can do more, so it'll be really great to see them fire off today. They were feeling really confident down at the boat park early, tuning their rig and ensuring that it was all balanced for their good day ahead, hopefully.
Shaw and Partners and Winning Group just going past camera there, past the start boat. Yes, well, Noakes Group, as you mentioned, Sean Langman. Rag and Famish Hotel, Bryce Edwards. R Marine is Marcus Ashley Jones. Shaw and Partners, Financial Services, James Doran. Smeg, Mika Lane. Tech 2, very much a form boat, Jack McCartney. The Kitchen Maker, Caesar Stone, Jordan Gertis. The Oak Double Bay, 4 Pines. They did well in the New South Wales Championship last weekend.
Yes, they did. They've really been a team to watch in the last few weeks. Jack McCartney of Tech 2 actually steered their boat early in the season and must have given them a bit of a good luck because they were really competitive throughout the whole New South Wales State Championships. Aaron Everett, the skipper, sailed the 18 since 2013, and we've seen significant improvements. That team has really worked hard together with Charlie Gundy joining the team this year, who sailed 12-foot skiffs and other skiff campaigns, as well as doing a lot of Sydney Hobart stuff. So caught Mars in the middle, and it's going to be good for them to get a solid result in the first race.
And just under 2 minutes remaining to the start now. Vintech, Kirk Mitchell, Winning Group. Sevi Jarman at the helm today. John Herman Winning is in America at the moment on business, and of course his dad Yandu, Johnny Winning Woody, with Bow, Mike Berger Kennedy, and also Pete Pistol Nicholson is the main sheet hand. And then we have the Queensland entry, Smith Lamnalco, Alex Watson with Ben Roxburgh and Elliot Marr. And a couple of brother combinations on different boats as well here today. But things starting to hot up now with just over 2 minutes remaining before the start of the opening race of the 18-footer Australian National Championship for 2020.
Yeah, so there's the 1 minute hooter right on time. So the fleet's really lining up here. We've got most of the fleet on starboard tack just to leeward of the start boat. However, we have Finport, so Keegan York and his team sitting up at the pin end on port. Now, I don't mind that option. I think the way that the breeze has settled in here, if they can get that trigger pull right, they'll be ahead of the fleet as far as I understand.
Yes, we've got the kitchen maker, Rack and Famish also at the starter boat end. Smeg also looking for ground.
Yeah, Noakes Blue, Royal Oak, Four Pines. We're hearing a little bit of chat going on at this boat end of the start line. To me, Kitchen Maker is the furthest boat on the right-hand side.
And we can hear a lot of shouting, Olivia. It's pretty hectic there at the moment.
Yeah, we can hear a lot of pushing and shoving. There's a second and third row here at the boat end. We've got Shaw and Partners and Winning Group down the leeward end, basically approaching Finport. Winning Group having a really, really great start there. Bird and Bear coming in just behind on the boat end. So not a great start for Noakes Blue. However, the rest of the fleet has got off cleanly and we don't have any recalls in the race, in the first race of the Australian Nationals.
Finport also away well at the pin end. Keegan York, Matt Stenter and Dave Ewings.
Yeah, so that port end, they did have to duck Shaw and Partners, I believe, but they've got off to a clean start and making their way towards Shark Island on Port Tack. So
and Noakes Blue, Yvette already going to the right-hand side of the course.
Yeah, their options were limited. Same with Bird and Bear coming in that second and third row at the boat end means that they just don't have any options. Royal Oak Four Pines is just tacked onto port as well to the back end of the fleet. They didn't have a great start, and we were talking earlier in the boat park about how important a good start is, especially in these shorter style sprint races that we've got. So you're just seeing Finport on Port Tack, leading the fleet on port on that right-hand side of the course, and then just to windward of them is Winning Group. So they've just crossed Armarine just in front, and then we've got the rest of the fleet still making their way over to Nielsen Park Headland.
Winning Group certainly covering Rag and Famish, so they've had a brilliant start.
Yeah, it really was. Those that did well in the start have been able to just breathe and relax a little bit and extend out away from the rest. So we've had a few tack and cross boats, which mean that they were on the start line just a little bit further ahead and able to accelerate properly.
Well, the bulk of the fleet heading to this eastern shore, and we've got a flying boat about to take off just to complicate proceedings.
Yes,
Shaw and Partners is tacked now.
Yeah, this is actually a bit tricky for Shaw and Partners here. They've got a Sydney Seaplanes just to the right of your screen. They're going to have to try and get around the seaplane, unsure whether to go to the left or the right of these boats. As you can see, it's quite tricky. They're actually backing up now, Gordon.
Yeah, I think that could have been very nasty. The seaplane was accelerating, ready to go, certainly putting the foot down on the accelerator before taking off, but they've stood their ground.
Yeah, and you just saw Shaw and Partners have to under-tack Winning Group there on the left of your screen. It just meant that they weren't actually settled once they crossed the bow of the Sydney Seaplanes, and just probably didn't even see Winning Group coming back.
Wow, that was pretty amazing. Sean Langman, Ed Powys and Nathan Edwards attacking now in Noakes Group with the red hull.
Yeah, so just on your screen, we're just looking at Finport extending a little bit. So they're on starboard. So they're the ones that crossed the fleet on port. They started on Port Tack, and they've made a little bit of a few boat lengths gain. So they're just tacking in front of Shaw and Partners here.
Well, it looks as though it's going to be a very competitive first race, but at the moment, Finport Finance, Royal Oak deep in the fleet at the moment, and Winning Group furthest to the left-hand side of the course now on Port Tack.
So as I did say before the start, I think that the breeze is going to pulse in and out, so it's going to build and then it's going to die, and it's just purely based on the clouds and the pressures coming over the land. So we're seeing a little bit of that as the fleet kind of compresses and then extends away from each other. It's going to continue to do that further up in Double Bay. When the boats were coming out, there was a lot of south in the breeze. However, in Rose Bay here, it's quite a lot of east, meaning that there's a little bit further left-hand pressure. Whether that will stay to the top mark, I'm not sure.
Olivia, Appliances Online, Brett Van Munster, Phil Marshall and Kurt Paturis looking pretty fast on this first leg.
Yeah, you can just see them on your screen. Their number one rig is really settled, and they're quite comfortable sailing in these conditions. Earlier in the season, the Spring Championship, they won 2 races out of the 2-race day back in November, and so they'll be feeling quite comfortable here, being a little bit overpowered in what we've got, an up pressure that we've got here today. Although they are in Tech 2's dirty air, they're trying to punch forward, just accelerate a little bit and get around their bow.
So Tech 2 also in the group. Brett Van Munster here on the helm. He's the boat builder for this class. He sailed on Naval Group as a helmsman, and main sheet for Sean Langman as they tack now.
And that was a really nice tack. They went into the tack overpowered, so it meant that they had a little bit of a back of the main. But they've got really solid crew work. That team of Appliances Online. They've sailed together for the last 2 seasons, and they know how to tack their boat properly. They know their positioning, and just sitting on the wire, looking really nice.
Finport Finance, though, after that great start at the pin end, Keegan York has managed to cross Tech 2 and looks to be setting the pace in the early stages. So great work by Finport Finance, Keegan York, Matt Stenter and Dave Ewings. Dave Ewings, formerly bowman on Xerox, and Amy with Dave Whitty. And they didn't have the best start to the day as we were in the boat park, Olivia. A very unkind lady ran into their boat trailer on William Street.
Yeah, there was a bit of a prang. A lady pulled out in front of Keegan as he was towing the boat to the boat park in Double Bay. So it hit the front of the trailer and actually kind of dented their dolly. No damage to the hull or the boat, so that was lucky. But it's not your unique start to your 18-foot skiff day. So we're just looking at winning group to leeward of Tech 2 and just managing the rest of the fleet that's on the left-hand side. We've had a bit of a split fleet. We had Tech 2 and Appliances Online take the right-hand side up near Shark Island, and then we've got the rest of the fleet coming back on Port Tack. We are almost at the top mark here of the first lap of the first race of the Australian National Championships. We've got Appliances Online basically about to tack on lay. We've had Tech 2 already tack off, and winning group. So there's Appliances Online trying to kind of tack before winning group. I'm not sure whether that was the best tack or the best manoeuvre. Winning group coming in with quite a lot of speed in this left-hand breeze. However, it has dropped off.
It's a great race here to this top mark with Finport with right of way on starboard, just ahead of Tech 2, then Shaw and Partners and Rack and Famous.
Yeah, we've got, this has been a really tight work, although Finport has just maintained their position in first throughout that first upwind. The fleet changing at the back has been really to and fro, so we're seeing the crew pulling up the spinnaker, getting it up as fast as they can whilst they had to get around the 2 bits of the fleet. So Appliances Online and winning group, they had to avoid them. Tech 2 burning around the top mark here.
Shaw and Partners third around, Appliances Online fourth, but coming inside is winning group.
Yeah, I could hear a bit of chat from Sevi on the winning group telling Brett Van Munster on Appliances Online not to tack. That it basically just wanted to get inside them at the top mark. And a fantastic one for Rag and Famish sitting in 6th at the moment, rounding the top mark in 6th, Armarine in 7th. So there's a bit of a logjam up here at the top mark now. We've got Noakes sailing going around at the same time as new boat Bird and Bear. Birkenhead Point Marina just behind with a windward set, which is a bit tricky. Bird and Bear a bit slow getting the spinnaker out there, though they've gained a little bit of distance upwind of everyone.
Then Dal Zotto, the Kitchen Maker, Royal Oak Hotel Four Pines and Smeg deep in the fleet at the moment.
Yeah, they won't be happy with that, and it really did extend from the start, not being able to be on that front row.
Yandu, one of the trailers with Noakes Blue, Yvette just coming around in second last place at the moment. And a lot of shouting going on up ahead here between Smeg and Royal Oak Hotel, Four Pines.
Yeah, so Smeg just to windward of Royal Oak. Royal Oak not really happy with how they rounded inside of Smeg and wanted to basically lift them up and wanting to punch through as fast as possible. It downwind sailing is quite tactical. You've got to really balance your short battles with the rest of the fleet. So although, you know, Smeg has now got in front of Four Pines, a lot of the boats behind them actually have caught up to them. So it's about managing not just your battles and trying to gain one position, but not lose much on the fleet. So Finport Finance was the first boat to jibe out of, where are we? Milk Beach, Queen's Beach on the north side of Rose Bay. So they were the first ones to get off, and they've made their way down the main part of this channel past Shark Island with a commanding lead at the moment. Tech 2 very, very close on the other jibe as Finport just keeps continuing on.
Yes, it's a real ding-dong go at the head of the fleet. Certainly Finport Finance first round that windward mark ahead of Tech 2, Shaw and Partners. Then Winning Group in fourth, Appliances Online in fifth, Rack and Famish in sixth, Marine in seventh, and Noakes back in eighth.
Yeah. So Finport Trade Finance crossed in front of Shaw and Partners. They are approaching the bottom mark gate. We do have a short course here today because there are 2 races going on. The first 2 races, the Australian Championships. 3 laps. This is the first of 3, and they're approaching the bottom gate.
And we've just gone past a young lady on a surf ski in the middle of the 18-footer fleet. She's game.
I'm not sure that's where I'd want to be, but I don't think she's got many options.
Finport Finance then will be first through the gate. They're dropping the kite now. It looks pretty tidy. And Shaw and Partners closing hard, followed by Tech 2.
Yep, so Finport Trade Finance wanted to just get their spinnaker away nice and early. They knew they had buoy room, which is right of way to go around that mark before Shaw and Partners, and Shaw and Partners had to give them room. So it's very, very close. Shaw and Partners kept their spinnaker up for a little bit longer. You can just see Tim Morishima packing the spinnaker just a little bit more, making sure that it's not going to get out on this second work up to the windward mark.
Winning Group to be fourth around the leeward mark, trailing by about 15 seconds behind Finport.
Yeah, so we're in a little bit of lighter breeze here, so you can afford to have your crew member sitting in and packing the spinnaker just a little bit longer. We've got Appliances Online coming around in fifth.
And then Marine look as though they've made up one place downwind.
Yeah, they possibly have. We've got Rag and Famish Hotel going to the opposite mark, so you can see Marine very, very slow coming in. They've underlaid the mark. They do have buoy room, but they're going to be very slow, almost having to jibe to get around it. You can see Noakes Sailing and Boy and Bear going around, Bird and Bear, sorry, going around inside. Not such a great job from John Walton there.
And Rack and Famish indeed was, as you mentioned, sixth round on the opposite mark.
Yep, so they're making their way up to the southern end of the harbour, so on Port Tack heading off. Further up the course, we've got Tech 2 is the first boat to tack out onto port, just above the majority of this fleet still coming downwind. They'll just pop through. As I mentioned, we are in a little bit of a lighter patch down here. However, the mark, just past the marks, there is back up to about 12 knots here on Sydney Harbour.
And take us through logistics here, Liv, of dropping the kite coming down to this leeward mark.
It's really is an art form. So you've got the skipper who is in control of the boat, but they've got to make sure that the boat is flat whilst they're trying to allow a stable platform for their crew to drop. You'll then see the bowman run in and drop the spinnaker, so they've got to let the tack line off, so the one that's on the front end of the bowsprit, as well as the halyard, and they've got to time that really, really well whilst the skipper still maintains their steering and the crew balances out the work.
Now just ahead here is the Oak Double Bay, Four Pines, and the helmsman, Aaron Everett, engaged as of yesterday. He proposed to Ashley at Freshwater Beach. It wasn't very romantic. It was raining and they were sitting in the front seat of the car.
Yeah, so congratulations.
Yes, congratulations to Aaron Everett and Ashley. He did have an opportunity at Lake Garda in Italy, so I just wonder whether Ashley was totally impressed.
I'm sure she was surprised. Aaron seemed very, very happy this morning. Firstly, to be here and just was the first thing he said to me. So congratulations, guys. It's fantastic news, and all the best.
So now we're powering across on the AeroMedia camera cat to follow Finport Finance Keegan York, a very experienced skipper. He was bow on Lucasade back in the early 90s, and also Bloomberg. He's a bit of a legend in the 18-footers, and they had a brilliant start, but have they got Shaw and Partners, Winning Group and Tech 2 covered? At the moment, you'd say probably yes.
Yeah, at the moment you would say that, Gordon. Just on your screen, you've got the really balanced boat with Matt Stenter driving the main sheet and really being the energy of the boat. Then we've got Dave in the bow. So they've really they've got each other covered. You can see Matt with a couple of hand movements, just wanting to basically lock down this race course. They've got a commanding lead at the moment, probably about 15 to 20 boat lengths ahead of Shaw and Partners. There's Matt giving us a little high.
Keegan was a bit worried, I've got to say, because Matt was a little late turning up today, and after the prang with the trailer, he was a one-man band there for a while, but he said, no, I've just seen Matt's car around the Double Bay car park, so we're okay. So maybe that's the way to do it, you know.
Have your skipper do everything.
Late, have an accident on the way to the course, because they're making every post a winner at the moment.
Yeah. So, I've just heard that Keegan actually sailed on the national champion 16-foot skiff boat with Matt Stenter. So, sailed on the Sutek Musto. Nice little practice getting back into it all. 16-foot skiffs being, obviously 2 feet shorter than the 18-footers, but they're very, very competitive class. So Matt Stenter and the usual bowman on Finport Trade Finance, Angus Williams, won the 2020 Australian 16-foot national championships up at Port Stephens with Daniel Ruffy Turner. So congratulations, guys, and they're really working hard as a team.
Well, Keegan York, Managing Director of Finport Trade Finance, he's a brilliant helmsman. Now he's on the trapeze, and his main function is just to have the tiller and focus. He placed in the top 20 in the World Moth Championships, and that was on the Swan River in Perth back in December last year. He's a very accomplished man. Matt Stenter recently, as we've mentioned, won the 16-foot skiff championship, a member of Team Hooligan, professional sailing organisation for Marcus Blackmore. And,
yeah, they are. This team is really established in their own rights, and then as a team, they were doing really well last season. Unfortunately, the JJs didn't go that well for them. They had a couple of points that they couldn't discard early and then late in the regatta. However, they're hoping that this year they're going to have a little bit more consistency and then be able to pull off maybe a championship win.
Well, they have that fantastic never surrender attitude, very tough competitor every week, and this will certainly give them some great confidence if they can maintain their equilibrium here. Still a couple of 100 metres from the windward mark. Oh no, we're going around now.
Yeah, so they're just making their way around. You could see Keegan, Matt and Dave all having a conversation about what side of the course they were going to go downwind. So we've had basically the upwind was quite simple, only two or three tacks for each of these for the front boat. They were able to extend, so they've made a big gain on Tech 2, who's now sitting in second ahead of Shaw and Partners, and then Winning Group in fourth. So with the pulsing pressure that we've got here on Sydney Harbour today, they've got crew work moving in and out, a little bit of steering, but always trying to maintain high apparent speed, so moving forward through the water quite quickly, and that makes everything a lot easier. If you're going fast through the water, you don't get knocked over by any of these gusts that come through, and you don't have to worry too much about trying to rebuild and accelerate. We've just got this smooth thing going on. So we're just watching
Tech 2 around in second place. And Olivia, tell us about the, I noticed Matt Stenter and Dave Ewings having a good look round on our side of the course here, just looking around, looking at the opposition. Take us through the roles of the main sheet man and also the bowman in this situation downwind.
Yeah, so the main sheet man's basically looking around. They're setting up and looking for their ley lines. So Matt would be very involved in the conversation with Keegan, while Dave is mostly trimming the spinnaker, although he's got his head looking around everywhere. His focus is mostly on the spinnaker. So as they go into a jibe, there's a little bit of mechanical manoeuvring that needs to happen. So you can see Keegan's got the main sheet in his hand, Matt having a little look around. He'll actually be able to jibe the spinnaker for Dave, and then Dave get out onto the other side. We'll watch this happen now.
So the main sheet hand actually hands the sheet to the skipper before the jibe.
Yeah, so it just means that the main sheet hand can go in, and then you'll just see Matt pop the buttons there. The main sheet hand is really the workhorse in this downwind, doing all the little jobs that need to be done, whilst Keegan obviously steers, and then Dave trims the spinnaker to complete accuracy.
Yeah, well, Matt just showing us, why they won the national 16-foot skiff championship with Angus Williams in Port Stephens just a couple of weeks ago. And Daniel Turner as well.
No, I was up there watching, Gordon. It was fantastic racing. They only won on a count back on the last race by about a boat length. We weren't sure on the shore whether they were going to win or not. So well done to the boys, and also well done to Lee Napton and Brydenson, who came second and sailed a brilliant last race to win by almost 4 minutes. We're looking at second place here. We've got Tech 2 that have done their jibe. So Finport Trade Finance has extended, while Tech 2 has had to battle away a little bit with Winning Group and Shaw and Partners. Now, Shaw and Partners went across to the Shark Island side of this downwind run with Appliances Online and Marine. But we've got Tech 2 and Winning Group that went on the same course as Finport Trade Finance, who are approaching the bottom mark, will be around within the next 30 seconds. This is lap 2 of 3 for the first race of the Australian National Championships for the 18-footers.
Jack McCartney sailed in the 2018 Volvo Ocean Race with Scallywag, David Witt, and they won the leg into Hong Kong and finished a very close second into Auckland.
So you can see Shaw and Partners has done quite well out of that Shark Island side of the downwind run, along with Appliances Online. Tech 2 trying to basically sail directly to the mark, while Shaw and Partners has got a couple more jibes to do. I would say that Shaw and Partners had a nice little gain out of that side. Now there might be a little bit more pressure on that side. They're just having to go in behind Appliances Online, so there's even more gain further on the right-hand side of this downwind.
So a great battle going on for second place at the moment, but after that exemplary start by Finport Finance, Keegan York, Matt Stenter, Dave Ewings, it was a dream start, wasn't it? And as we were speaking to a vet on the Noakes Blue Boat, she was explaining that you can just take hundreds of metres out of the fleet with a decent start, and that's exactly what Finport Finance has done here. But now the battle for second place, 3 skiffs converging. Appliances Online, Tech 2, and Shaw and Partners.
This is going to be a tricky bottom mark for everyone. So Appliances Online actually has buoy room. So they're the first boat to be able to go around the mark. Now it's going to be, James Doran has stuck his bow up on Shaw and Partners to ensure that he does not have to give room to Tech 2, Jack McCartney. So it's a 3 boat length zone, we call it. So 3 boat lengths from the mark. If there is an overlap, so if there is a boat that is inside your line and on parallel to your stern, you have to give them room to go around the mark first. So we're just seeing a little bit of a messy bottom mark rounding there from both Appliances Online as well as Tech 2. Marine very, very close in behind here in 4th. They've gained massively. In saying that, Winning Group has just gone round the opposite mark. So it's gone the left-hand turn mark and is heading to the right-hand side of the course in 5th place.
And Noakes Group, Sean Langman, Ed Poes and Nathan Edwards also rounding this closest mark. So they've done quite well. But it's more than a minute lead for Finport Finance as they head up to the windward mark for the last time. Keegan York, Matt Stenter and Dave Ewings doing a fantastic job. And they couldn't have sailed a better race, really, in the conditions which are gusting up to 12 knots at the moment. But really lovely conditions, Olivia, on Sydney Harbour.
Yes, it is. It really is lovely condition sailing. So we weren't expecting this much wind. It was a little bit marginal to begin with. However, the breeze opened up and we've got, between 10 and 12 knots from about 145. So a little bit of east in this breeze from what was predicted to be a southerly, making for basically open racing. We've got beautiful Rose Bay, so much open water in front of us here, meaning that it really is open. You can make decisions, and you can also lose a lot of positions by not choosing the right side of the course. There's a lot of shift going on out here.
We're just on Appliances Online, who came around second at that leeward mark behind Finport, but trailing by over a minute, ahead of Shaw and Partners, then Tech 2 in fourth place and R Marine. And you'd have to say, barring an accident or an absolutely massive wind shift, Finport really has this one by the jugular at the moment.
Yeah, they've definitely, consolidated their lead and extended even. Is that the commentator's curse, though? There's still one more downwind run to go in this first race of the day. Keep in mind, we do have 2 races today. So we've got Appliances Online and Shaw and Partners, as well as Tech 2, all tacking at the exact same time to head off onto Port Tack. However, it's Winning Group going around the right-hand mark earlier, having a lead over these 3 that are battling it out for second. This is a really fantastic race for these positions.
So Winning Group has certainly picked up that wind shift very cleverly, and she's going to cross the 3 boats that she actually trailed. And Winning Group now doing a great job, has moved into second place behind Finport Finance.
Just looking back towards the fleet a little bit of movers and shakers with the Kitchen Maker consolidating their position down that run, being able to be equal with Noak Sailing. Kitchen Maker hasn't actually featured too much in this season as yet. They've had a couple of struggles getting off the start line, but they've worked their way back in, so their crew work is obviously up to scratch. Similar to this boat here, Sevi Jarvin, Ash Rooklin and Sam Newton. Sevi and Sam actually sailed together in the 2020 Australian Etchell Championships and got 9th, which is a fantastic effort. That fleet is extremely competitive.
Well, I think last year they were 18th, so they've doubly improved their performance, and they'd have to be very satisfied with that. But this must be a sweet moment for Sevi Jarvis as well. Back at the helm, not the tidiest in front of the camera.
Ash Rooklin just dropping the main sheet there, but really good recovery, just pulling it into windward and trying to scoop the boat back up. Really good recovery from the other 2, Sam and Sevi, just not going out on the ring and not basically bringing it into windward, just a little recovery. They had tacked on our Marine, so they had them covered, who's just had to tack out to find clear air again. So we're seeing a little bit more changing up here, Gordon. We've got Finport Trade Finance obviously in first place at the moment, but Tech 2, Appliances Online and Shaw and Partners have chosen the right-hand side and Winning's on the left-hand side. So we're seeing Winning just bow up a little bit on the left-hand side, so a little bit left pressure, giving them a little bit more of an advantage. However, the other 3 boats have to tack, and therefore there could be a right-hand shift out where Finport is, and that could give those 3 boats a little bit of a push against Winning Group, who crossed them last time.
And Finport very close to the ley line now to go around the windward mark for the last time. But the real interest is going to be in this battle for second place. Has there been a big lift on the right-hand side of the course? It looks as though Winning Group has those boats further to right covered at the moment. It's going to be very close.
Yeah, there was a lot of leverage, so a lot of distance between Winning Group and the 3 other boats. So it meant that it was either going to be a big win or a big loss. Now, I'm looking at...
It's hairy. It's hairy.
Yeah, Winning Group has gone a little bit light in pressure, so they're just bending a little bit. Although they are crossing Appliances Online, I don't think they're crossing the other 2.
They're going to have to duck behind Shaw and Partners. So that was a losing tack there for Winning Group. They've gone from second back into fourth place, make it fifth.
Yeah, all boats are under the ley line. We've got Finport just going around the mark, doing a jibe set with the spinnaker up. So a jibe set meaning that there's a little bit more pressure and angle out on this right-hand side of the course looking upwind, where Winning Group is trying to take advantage of against Tech 2, Appliances Online and Shaw and Partners. It really is a super shifty afternoon here on Sydney Harbour. Rose Bay in a southeasterly always provides a mixed bag, but it's really up and down, left and right. It really isn't stable. You've got to continue looking ahead and making a plan to take advantage of each pressure as you get it.
So Finport aquaplaning down to the finish. And at the moment, Tech 2 looks as though they're in second place ahead of perhaps Winning Group has picked up that lift on the right-hand side of the course into third place.
Yeah, so just watching Tech 2 collapse a little bit into that left pressure, a little bit lighter. They will have to do another tack. Winning Group still in the right-hand pressure. Shaw and Partners coming in on a hot one on the left, along with Armarine and Appliances Online.
So Winning Group's moved back into third place. They've got Shaw and Partners covered. Tech 2 will have to tack again here.
So 2 slow tacks from Tech 2. They just underlaid, and Winning Group is going to have to do the exact same thing, whereas the boats coming in on the right-hand side will have a little bit more boat speed.
Tech 2, second around. Winning Group will be third around with the extra tack.
Not the best one.
Shaw and Partners.
Tiller extension has come off on Winning Group. So their windward tiller extension is no longer on the boat. They have it, so they will be trying to get it back on as soon as they can. But Sevi Jarvan having to steer Winning Group from the inside. You can see Sam Newton trying to untangle the mess that they've got going on. They'll be wanting to get onto the other jibe quite quickly and just trying to get it done.
Well, that little mishap has cost them 4 or 5 boat placings.
Yeah, the racing's been so tight that something as small as that, or as simple as not taping your tiller extensions so that they don't come undone, is quite unfortunate for Winning Group. We've got Armarine trying to push them up from the leeward side. Bit of kerfuffle there. So we're just watching everyone. So the only boats that's continued on the straight set were Armarine and Winning Group, while everyone else has jibed onto the other side. So Tech 2 were able to just breathe a little bit further away around that top mark, giving themselves a little bit of breathing space in that second position.
Yes, and I suppose, Olivia, it comes down to the pressure too that was being applied, and having to not quite make the lay line, having to make the extra tacks, and mistakes occur under pressure, and sometimes gear failure as well.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it might have just been a little bit of a lift up on the tiller extension, having, as I said, 2 slow tacks, meaning that you had to apply a little bit more pressure. Obviously, boats coming in from either side of them wanting to have a go. We've still got a really tight battle here. We've got Noak Sailing, Sean Langman jibing before Appliances Online, so they will have a little bit more clear air than Appliances Online and Shaw and Partners. So Appliances has got to sail a little bit further, though. I don't want to be going any further. I know it gets quite shallow in there.
I can almost touch the rocks from there.
Yeah.
On Appliances Online.
I guess that's knowing Sydney Harbour and being able to know your racetrack. So Finport Trade Finance just going down to the finish down there. Close battle with Armarine and Noak Sailing. Armarine jiving on top of Noak Sailing there. They've been in the most pressure. This is probably the most pressure of the day, Gordon.
Yeah. And interesting with Noakes Marine, Sean Langman's been sailing in the Flying 15s for the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron last week, and I think he finished 7th.
Oh, wow.
So he's well tuned. He said he's not as fit as he'd like to be, but he will be when it counts.
That's always the story, isn't it?
But doing a fantastic job. He is just such an enthusiast. You can't keep him off the water, can you, Sean Langman? And
no,
he's having a great battle with Armarine at the moment.
You know, he's so supportive of everyone. He's got 2 boats here in the 18-foot skiff with Noakes Blue, Yvette Heritage, the only female in the fleet, who's having a bit of an average day today in this first race, but there's always one more to go today.
Absolutely. And also, as she said, just getting a decent start. That's been the key of this first race, with Finport Finance having an absolute blinder, having eclipsed the field or the fleet, and a great battle going on for the miners at the moment. Shaw and Partners, Tech 2 certainly in the box seats.
Yeah, so we've got Shaw and Partners coming through the finish line now in 3rd position. They'll be happy with that. They've had a little bit of time where James Doan on the helm hasn't actually been sailing each week, so they'll be happy to get a little bit of consistency after going sailing on Friday for a training session.
Appliances Online in 4th, and the Noakes Group coming home in 5th ahead of Marine in 6th place.
Yeah, only just ahead of Marine, who did quite a good job down that run. Tried their best to cover on top of Noakes Sailing, just couldn't quite get ahead of their air.
And the Rag and Famish doing a good job as well.
Yeah, we've got Winning Group after their little incident at the top mark where their tiller extension came off on the starboard side, meaning they couldn't quite bear away after their short tack to round the mark. They had to continue on starboard tack when it was probably favoured to go for a jibe onto port. So we've got Winning Group coming in for a tight finish with Rag and Famish here. I'd say that was Winning Group just ahead of Rag and Famish. So Winning Group in 7th, Rag and Famish 8th, and then the Kitchen Maker making their way to the finish.
Well, that was a very good recovery by Winning Group. The Kitchen Maker going across, and they'll be followed in by Smeg.
Yeah, tough race for Smeg as well. Mika wasn't able to accelerate off the start line in a very good position and just struggled with the rest of the fleet. There was a bit of congestion throughout that first upwind on starboard tack, and then by the time the fleet had all tacked onto port, they had to then find the congestion again. So 10th place for Smeg as they cross the finish line.
So Olivia, you might run through those unofficial placings from the first race of the Australian National Championships for 18 footers in 2020 on Sydney Harbour.
Yes, so Finport Trade Finance sailed a fantastic race starting on port, the only boat to start on port. They had to duck one boat, so they just had to duck Shaw and Partners or Winning Group, I believe, and then they continued on port and just were able to take advantage of a right-hand shift. So we had Finport Trade Finance in first, Tech 2 in second, third was Shaw and Partners, fourth Appliances Online, and it was very, very tricky racing. The lead changed in that pack many times. Fifth, we had Noakes Sailing, closely followed by Marine Pittwater. Seventh was Winning Group after their little incident at the top mark without a tiller extension. Eighth, Rag and Famish Hotel. Ninth was the Kitchen Maker Caesarstone. 10th was Smeg.
And Yandu, the evergreen John Winning, Woody, just coming across the line now with Mike Kennedy and also Pete Pistol Nicholson. Johnny Winning, the legend of this class, former world champion in 2000 and a runner-up a couple of times to the great Ian Murray in that stellar run between 1977 and 1982. They've been very competitive this year, and he'll be maybe a little disappointed he wasn't closer, but he's beaten certainly half a dozen boats home.
Yeah,
they were third overall in
14.
this year's Spring Championship. Dal Zotto across.
Yeah, Dal Zotto in 15th there, closely followed by Ilvi. So just pipped them on the line there. So just coming down to the finish, we've got Noakes Blue, Vintech, and then our Queensland entrant, Smith something or other.
Yes.
They didn't quite know how to say it, did they, Gordon?
No. Yvette Heritage, Noakes Blue, crossing the line. Yvette's second season in the 18s. As she said, it's very much a learning thing. Strength is a big challenge, being the only female skipper, but it's also time on the water and experience. And, you know, she's got a terrific crew there in Rory Hunter and Oliver Scott Mackey.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to actually sail Noakes Blue in the Super Cup during December last year with Rory and Ollie, and they were so much fun to sail with, and Yvette was so welcoming and helpful in trying to make sure that we had our starting strategy together, because she knows how important it is. But the strength and the G-force of the 18-footers as they go around the top mark or they go into a jibe, for as Yvette mentioned to us before, it really is just a little bit extra strength and trying to fight the G-force that she finds is probably the biggest struggle as a female in the fleet.
Yes, and Svitlemenko is
19th across the
19th.
line.
So they were out for an experience, and obviously they'll be looking to improve drastically. But yes, she's done several Sydney Hobarts, Yvette Heritage, and the fact that you were in that Super Series in the 18-footers, skippering the 18-footer with Rory and Oliver, it just puts you right at the coalface, doesn't it? And knowing exactly what's they're facing out here on Sydney Harbour and in what is a really nice sailing breeze for these big rigs.
So Olivia, we've got the last week's race highlight to go. Just introduce it, last week's race highlight, and it'll be a minute and a half. What do you want to do?
Okay, let's now focus on what happened last week, the race highlight. It was the New South Wales Championship, and again we saw some very competitive racing, and let's now have a look at the highlights from last weekend in the New South Wales Championship here.
A really good start of that lured in. Tech 2's out into the current first. Wow.
Front of a little small. But look at Noakes here. Wow.
Good puff.
On the face of a beauty.
Tech 2's still way out in front here. See the boys really working in there. Happy days there. Well aboard the Tech 2. Sailed well.
Nice work.
Was very happy.
So just recapping, Finport Finance, Keegan York, Matt Stenter and Dave Ewings doing a splendid job in that opening race of the 2020 Australian Championship, and they really blitzed the fleet. Second place, Tech 2. Third placing was Shaw and Partners Financial Services, James Doran, Harry Bethwaite and Tom Morishima. In fourth place, Appliances Online, Brett Van Munster. Fifth was Noakes Group, the Noakes Corporation, Sean Langman, Ed Powies and Nathan Edwards. Seventh, R Marine from Pittwater, or correction, sixth was R Marine from Pittwater. Seventh was the winning group, Sevi Jarvan, and boy did they have some fun and games at that last windward mark. Just take us through what happened there, Olivia.
Yeah, well, we're just about to be, we're just inside 3 minutes here for this second race, but just at the final turning mark for the first race of the day, winning group tacked onto starboard tack and unfortunately lost their tiller extension. It came off the toggle, so they were not able to bear away and lost probably 4 positions in that unfortunate incident.
Has that happened to you before?
Oh, definitely.
And how does it happen?
The toggle, it sits in like a T form. It's a rubber, basically snatch lock, and you put a cap over the top of it. Sometimes the cap comes off, and it unfortunately jumps out of its little groove. However, there is a way to stop that, and it's taping them together.
Well, John Winning says no taping on my boats.
It takes too long to unrig, Gordon.
Yeah.
So inside 2 minutes here for the second race of the Australian National Championships. 3 laps for this race again. We've got anywhere between 8 and 12 knots on the harbour. We're situated at the same starting line, just in the main channel and the boats will work their way up to a mark off Rose Bay. These are 2 sprint races, so they're 3 laps, quite short, although it's quite tiring for the crews. It really will be, this race, a bit of a battle of endurance. Another 3 laps to do.
And are you looking at a fairly similar pressure to the first race start?
There's our 1 minute hooter. I do believe it's similar, potentially a little bit lighter. We've got clouds coming over as well as in the background over offshore. So there's... so I've just heard from Bird and Bear, their D1 has ripped off on the starboard side, so they will not be sailing this second race today. Unfortunate for them. It was a great opportunity for them to get out there, but they will not be there, so no Tom Clout, Nick Daly or John Walton in this second race of the day. Not long to go for the start of the second race. We've got Shaw and partners to windward of the start line wanting to do a port tack start, similar to what Finport Trade Finance did on that first race and blitzed the start. Winning Group potentially locking down that option from them. At the boat end here, we've got Noakes Blue set up in quite a nice position. Appliances online just to windward of them. So the start is ever key, as we've been talking about. Birkenhead Point Marina accelerating.
Winning Group getting a great start at the pin end.
Yep, on starboard, Shaw and partners on port. We've got an individual recall. That's a little bit late on the sound signals for people to be able to turn around and have a look at it. I have a feeling it was Winning Group, so they're going to be pretty upset with that if it is them.
Finport Finance starting at the starter boat end and has the fleet to leeward at the moment.
Yep, so just seen Winning Group turn around after what was going to be a fantastic start, and they will have to go behind the line and then accelerate again. Noakes Blue having a fantastic start there. So Yvette's picked herself up and moved on with the rest of this race that's still to come. She had a fantastic start on the windward side. Windward end of the line, just to windward of Birkenhead Point Marina with appliances online. We know how fast that they can sail in these conditions to windward of them. Seeing a little bit of up pressure on these mainsails, so we've got quite a bit of open twist, and the profile on Noakes Blue quite open. They will be starting to trapeze down a little bit in this new pressure. You just see they're going over the top of Birkenhead Point Marina, who has Rag and Famish taking their clean air in front of them. So Birkenhead Point Marina struggling a little bit in this lineup.
So this is great to see for Yvette Heritage, Rory Hunter and Oliver Scott Mackey. Rory calling a lot of the tactics, and they had a terrific start there, and the bulk of the fleet now heading towards this eastern shore.
Yeah, you'll just see a couple of boats pop out a little bit to leeward. So we've got R Marine down there, as well as the Royal Oak Hotel, and that's just a little bit of compression from the land. There's a right-hand shift that this fleet is in right at this moment in time, and then it's funneling down the shore right ahead of us here. So it's building in a bit of extra pressure and a change in angle.
Shaw and partners first attack, Olivia.
Yeah, they are. They had to. They were the ones that started on port, and they had to under-tack Tech 2. So they're still struggling to find a clean lane here in this second race of the Australian Championships.
Tech 2 went right into the rocks and is going to have to duck behind
Royal Oak.
the Royal Oak. 4 Pines.
And Armarine, ducking both of them there. That's
and
a big duck.
Famish as well.
That's a big duck. And again, they're going to have to duck Noakes Blue. So when you start at the port end of the line, so the pin end of the line, the most leeward end, you do want to make sure that when you tack, you can cross everyone. That's the aim. That's the aim of this, of basically starting at that end of the line. And unfortunately, with Terra Firma, a bit of Australia sitting in front of them, then they've got to tack at a different point in time than they would have ideally liked to if there was a little bit more racetrack.
So the Royal Oak, 4 Pines, Aaron Everett, Courtney Marr, Charlie Gundy ahead here, having to duck in behind Appliances Online. That was close.
Yep, and they're going to have to duck Finport Trade Finance too. So another boat that wasn't able to get off the line in the first race, however, has brought their A game to this second race of the series. You're just watching the whole fleet here, the majority of the fleet here on port, settling in. They'll be basically crossing to either the middle or the far right-hand side. I do see a little bit of pressure up on the left-hand side of your screen there, so that could benefit Rag and Famish, Finport and Appliances Online compared to, say, some boats out here such as Tech 2 and Shore and Partners. But if there's one thing we figured out today is that the breeze is really shifting and really pulsing in and out.
So Finport Finance is backing themselves on the left-hand side of the course with Appliances Online. Rag and Famish already on Port Tack, and Tech 2 and the Red Noakes boat on the right-hand side of the course now.
Yeah, so you can just see on your screen the split of the fleet across this Rose Bay Harbour at the moment. You know, it really could go either way. We've seen that happen already today. But Shore and Partners, Noakes Sailing and Tech 2 are about to get to Shark Island and tack, and that's when we'll be seeing the boats converge and see whether that left-hand side of Appliances Online and Finport has won against this right-hand side.
A little light in here for Shore and Partners. And we're on Smeg.
And Armourine, they're just behind these three boats that we've been speaking about as they come across. So we've got Noakes Sailing just about to cross Armourine, although they've just undertacked them. So just to the right of the screen, we've got Shore and Partners and then Tech 2. So Smeg trying to find a gap, so just continuing on as far as they can towards Shark Island so that they've got a little bit of clear air on their way up to the top mark.
So the boats on this side on starboard tack with right-of-way, Finport Finance on port tack as the two sides of the course come together. And who got the biggest lift? Finport Finance seems to be leading Appliances Online at the moment. They're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, that left-hand side, there was a bit of extra pressure out that side of the course, and they've just been able to gain a little bit of speed, therefore sailing a little bit faster, less distance, and able to cross the bows of Shore and Partners and Tech 2. Appliances Online also being able to cross at least Shore and Partners. Rag and Famish is just through the back end of the screen there, and they're continuing out to that left-hand side, along with Royal Oak, Double Bay, Four Pines and Noakes Blue. So they're sailing basically 20 degrees higher on that left-hand side and probably in maybe 1 or 2 knots more pressure. So therefore sailing less distance as well as faster.
Finport Finance absolutely in the groove, steaming up to the top mark on this first of 3 legs, 3 laps.
Yes.
And Finport Finance with a 20-second lead over Appliances Online, Tech 2, Shore and Partners.
Yeah, so you're just seeing Finport setting up for attack there, so they believe they're on the ley line for the top mark for the first time. I'm sure they would have loved to have continued on against Appliances Online here, but sometimes in yacht racing you've got to tack when you don't quite want to, be it for the mark or a piece of land, as we saw straight off the start in this second race of the day. Appliances Online setting up for attack.
Brett Van Munster builds these boats up near Lake Macquarie. The crew have been sailing together for a few years, and they've certainly been achieving some great results.
Yeah, they were able to take out the Spring Championship earlier in the season. The 3 boys racing, however, they did it basically just had to show up on the last race of the series in order to take the championship.
So Finport around for the first time.
Threading the needle through Rag and Famish and Tech 2.
And now setting the chute.
You'll see Appliances Online having to sail a hotter angle here, so a higher angle, a little bit more distance before they can set their spinnaker, just because there are some boats in the way, such as Shore and Partners, Armourine, Tech 2. So third round, we've got Rag and Famish. Fantastic start to their second race. Royal Oak, Four Pines in 4th. Shore and Partners on the inside of the mark here, not such a great rounding for them. They ran out of breeze as Tech 2, Noakes Sailing, Noakes Blue were able to take their wind.
Armourine almost coming unstuck as well.
Yeah, the same thing, a little bit of teabagging we call it, where you're just dunking in the water and can't quite get out. Birkenhead Point Marina rounding as well. This is a very tightly packed group here, Gordon.
Yeah, Smeg, Vintech and Yandu, Johnny winning around as well. So it was Finport by about 12 seconds from Appliances Online. Rag and Famish in 3rd. Then we had the Royal Oak Double Bay 4 Pines, Shaw and Partners. Then Tech 2.
And then it was a mess.
Then it was the Noakes Group, Sean Langman, closely followed by Noakes Blue. So Yvette Heritage in the Noakes Blue boat, having her best performance so far in this Australian Championship in 8th position.
Yeah, she'll be looking to improve on that too. So she's come back out to this upwind, looking left side of the course, hoping for a little bit more pressure. She'll have to deal with a lot of boats in front of her, such as R Marine, Smeg and Birkenhead Point Marina. They're going to be able to take her wind and control her speed a little bit down this first run. You're just watching the fleet all making their way onto the long jibe, onto the port jibe, heading downwind after rounding the top mark for the first time out of 3 laps in the second race of the 2020 Australian National Championships.
And here's Rag and Famish Hotel, Bryce Edwards, Rory Cox and Jacob Broom. And they're having a terrific second race here.
Yeah, the Rag and Famish being one of the long-term sponsors of the 18-footers league. The Calligaris family have always been really supportive, and Pete might even be out here watching on his boat. He can't get enough.
Well, it's a famous hotel at North Sydney, of course, and sponsored by Coopers, that well-known ale. And interesting, Olivia, that the original Rag and Famish won the JJ Giltinan back in 2001 for a 24-year-old skipper named Johnny Harris. So it's a famous name, and they've been very much part of the furniture in the 18-footers. So Rag and Famish in
Coopers.
4th position.
Yeah. So Appliances Online just past the other side of Rag and Famish. They'll be having probably on collision course with the Royal Oak 4 Pines. So first place, we've got Finport Trade Finance jibing for the bottom mark. And then Appliances Online and Royal Oak 4 Pines on collision course.
Finport doing a conservative drop here.
So we just had the Royal Oak 4 Pines asking Appliances Online whether they were going to be able to pass through. Sometimes those with the right-of-way would prefer a boat to continue on even though they're in the wrong, because otherwise it would affect them in the dirty air and actually destroy their race. So we're just watching Matt Stenter on the bow, on the main, but just missed the step of the wing and ended up underneath it for a period of time there.
I thought we were going to have to go and save him there, Olivia.
So here's another meeting between the Royal Oak 4 Pines and Appliances Online. So the Royal Oak will have to give Appliances Online room to round the mark. They were what we call overlapped, so their boats were next to each other when they entered a 3-boat length imaginary zone. So Appliances Online will be able to round in a better position than the Royal Oak 4 Pines, and will be closely followed by Rag and Famish Coopers. If they can get their spinnaker down, yep, they've just released the halyard. We've got Noakes Sailing doing a bit of a cleaner drop, wanting to get around in a better position and attack this upwind like there's no tomorrow.
And Tech 2 just behind Sean Langman, going to the other mark. And you may have noticed their Appliances Online hit the mark. You're allowed to hit the marks in the 18-footer National Championship.
You're just not allowed to drag them anywhere. So fantastic downwind from Noakes Blue. She was able to punch her bow ahead of Birkenhead Point Marina from that jibe point up at the Queen's Beach area of Rose Bay. She was able to just get her bow ahead and maintain her clear air and get around the mark in 7th, I believe.
And now there's a gaggle of boats coming in here to this mark. I think we can look forward to some pretty frantic action here.
Yeah, so Winning Group has right of way. They're allowed to get into the 3-boat length zone and get around the mark first. They were coming in very, very fast. Were allowed to have inside room on Smeg, who have got their spinnaker tucked away, and then also had to get inside R Marine, and then the rest of the fleet coming around, such as Vintech, Yandu, and the Kitchen Maker.
Yandu's had a good downwind leg, just ahead of the Kitchen Maker. Then Dalzotto. Ilvi.
and our Queensland friends that have joined us for today's racing. They said that they were going to come down for the next 3 weeks as well, and there'll only be an increase of boats in the lead up to the famous JJ Giltnan World Championships that start in the middle of March.
Yes, that's Smith Lam Nalco from Queensland, Alex Watson, Ben Roxburgh and Alex Marr. Alex and Ben, very well-known 12-foot skiff sailors. So we're working our way back from deep in the fleet, but we can tell you that Finport Finance, Keegan York, Matt Centre debuting's winners of the first race have control of this second race as well.
Yeah, they're really dialed into the conditions here today. They do sail very fast in these conditions, but having a new bowman on board in Dave, it's always a risk having new crew on board. Unfortunately, their normal bowman, Angus Williams, I'm not unfortunate for him, he's holidaying in Mexico at the moment.
Here's Meg, Mika Lane, Ricky Bridge and Pete Harris. Probably back in the middle of the fleet at the moment. Interesting also, Olivia, that Finport Finance started at the opposite end of the line to the first race. A little bit tardy in their start, but they went out to the right-hand side of the course and got that big lift, and then out to the left and were able to cross the fleet on that first leg. Match-winning move so far.
Yeah, and by dialed in, like I said earlier, they're really in tune with how the wind is shifting and really looking basically out at the right gaining points and the right turning points in this race. So, the start, they just had a conservative start, wanting to continue on, not do anything too drastic like they did in that first race, but then really taking advantage of what they saw in front of them when the opportunity presented to take it.
Yvette Heritage and Noakes Blue, their second season in the 18s. Rory Hunter, the brother of the well-known Great Britain sailor Neil Hunter, and they did sail into a 4th place in the final race of the Spring Championship, and they're up into 7th place going around that bottom mark, so they made up 1 place downwind.
So just looking at the Rag and Famish Coopers on the left-hand side of the course again. That was a game-winning move for the boats that were on the left on that first upwind, and it seems to be a nice position that they're sitting in right now on that left-hand side again. There's a little bit more breeze, and they're just able to continue sailing in a stable condition.
There's FinTech in the background, Appliances Online closest, and you can see the margin has opened up even more now between first and second, and Royal Oak Hotel back in third. Looking across to Rag and Famish Hotel, they've got Royal Oak covered at the moment.
Yeah, nice move from the Rag and Famish, moving to the left-hand side of the course again. Finport coming back to do a little bit of a cover on the left-hand side. Appliances Online is the boat that's making their way out to the right-hand side the most. Finport just setting up for attack on Rag and Famish, making sure that they lock away that first position on the way to the top mark for the second time.
Olivia, you were telling me that as we go away now from Appliances Online, that Brett Van Munster also is involved in the Whiskey Project, the next generation of tactical watercraft, which sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so it's a new project that Brett Van Munster's been involved. So he's obviously got Van Munster boats that build these boats. They've got the mould here in Australia, so they're the one. There's 2 new boats in this fleet so far, but then he's also taken on this kind of defence tactical boat building, which I'm looking at it on Facebook earlier, and it's insanely high tech.
Well, let's give a big shout out here to Rag and Famish Hotel Coopers. Bryce Edwards, Rory Cox, Jacob Broom, they're from the Shire here in Sydney, and you mentioned they've been improving right throughout the series, and they're really throwing down the gauntlet now to Finport Finance as they come up to the top mark for the second time.
Yeah, it's fantastic work from the Rag this race. We haven't seen them feature too much in the seasons. They're a little bit inconsistent with the condition over the course of a series. However, today the second race is really theirs for the taking. Finport able to just basically sit there and cover, but Rag and Famish is going to throw anything they can at them, be it being on opposite jibes or sailing on different parts of the course. The two leaders, so Finport Trade Finance and Rag, have another 15 to 20 seconds behind them to be able to just basically sail their own race.
Appliances Online went way right on that side of the course. They're on the lay line now, but they look as though they may have given away a bit of time. And there's the margin, 10 seconds now, probably close to 15 seconds in favour of Finport Finance, Keegan York, Matt Centre and Dave Ewings. They won the first race from go to woe, and they're out to repeat the dose in this second race of the 18-footers Australian National Championship. Tech 2 coming up to the mark. Third around will be Appliances Online. So they certainly came in under full steam, just ahead of the Royal Oak Hotel, Four Pines Brewing.
Charlie Gundy on the bow there, sporting an interesting hairstyle. He's got a bit like a mop, and then he's decided to put a little headband around it. I'm not so sure about that, Charlie. In fifth, we've got Tech 2 rounding.
Why not?
I'm not
Personal
too sure.
taste.
So Tech 2 rounding in fifth here. Smeg and Noak Sailing both rounding the mark together. Smeg taking a higher line, Noak Sailing taking a little bit of a slower line. They'll have to try and punch their bow up behind Smeg, although they will be in an advantageous position when they move on to the next jibe later down the run. Evette Heritage, Noakes Blue, looks as though she'll be next around. They've lost a little bit of momentum as they attacked there. Yes.
Rory Hunter, Oliver Scott Mackey, but they're having a terrific race and not that far behind the leader, probably a couple of 100 metres.
Yeah, the racing we've seen today has been fantastic, Gordon. There's been so many changes in the positions and in the pack. You've really got to really not take your eye off the game, and the environment is the game today. There's been a lot of changes out there, although a couple of silly crew errors or incidents on some boats, but it really has been about the environment today. As we're watching Smeg having a look around, skipper Mika Lane looking around, seeing what's going on. Where's the wind? Where's the rest of the fleet? As we mentioned before, Mika was sailing a higher line out of the top mark, but Noak sailing a lower mark. So they've been able to jibe, whereas Mika has had to now sail a little bit further and potentially even, yeah, there's a moored boat just in front of Mika here. So he's gone right to it and then gone for a jibe.
Meantime, Finport Finance is heading down towards the gate. And then there'll be one more beat to windward to the top mark and a final leg to the finish. And they're holding a handsome lead at the moment. But the Rag and Famish Hotel, Bryce Edwards, Rory Cox, Jacob Broom, trailing only really by 15 seconds at that top mark, so it's still wide open. Just watching the jibe now on Finport Finance in the distance, but here we are with Tech 2, who's back in fifth position.
Yeah, and just round Tech 2's bow is the Rag and Famish. So they rounded 15 seconds behind Finport, as you said, Gordon, at that top mark. However, we're just going to watch just in front of us. We've got Finport and Rag meeting. So Finport just ahead of the Rag and Famish. However, I think they've closed a bit of distance, the Rag.
They certainly have. And I think there's a scent of blood in the air also for Appliances Online and the Royal Oak Hotel. They're close enough, if good enough now, to apply some pressure.
Oh, definitely. You know, this race isn't over. We said that Finport sailed a fantastic race one earlier today, and they're doing very, very well in race two. But everyone's throwing what they can at them, and really to take two races in a day is something quite extraordinary. So the rest of the fleet's not going to want them to have that confidence boost.
Just seen a very nice jibe there by Finport Finance. The Rag and Muffin has lost a little ground there, and the margin's going to be a matter
The Rag and Famish.
Rag and Famish. The Rag and Famish. Sorry, Uncle Sid.
You can see Rag and Famish coming in quite fast to Finport Trade Finance here.
Nice drop there by Finport Finance, very smooth, and they accelerated off the gate. Appliances Online has closed the gap, now trailing by 30 seconds. and the Royal Oak another 10 seconds behind. And that's a fast approaching Manly Ferry.
Yeah, and they're going to be coming straight through the 18-foot skiff course, I believe. So normally we don't have ferries such as these ones up this eastern side of the channel, but there are two big tanker ships that are taking up the main ferry channel, and it means that the ferries have had to come a little bit further east and therefore in the 18-foot skiff course. So you can see that just on your screen, and it's probably going to be there for the majority of the fleet.
And conditions just lightening off here at the gate as Tech 2 about to come round in 5th position. Sean Langman then not far behind from the Noakes group, followed by Smeg. And that's the warning for the 18-footer fleet. Get out of my way. So what happens in this situation?
Well, there is a requirement for the 18-foot skiffs to give way to this ferry. They cannot get in its way. You'll see Yvette dropping her spinnaker quite early, the ferry going in full reverse. Yvette's dropped her spinnaker. Birkenhead Point has had to jibe. Yvette going around the back. Birkenhead Point getting right in the mix of it here, as well as Shaw and Partners. So they're getting very, very close to this bottom mark, the ferry here. It's an interesting line that they've taken. Shaw and Partners definitely just taking the cross. I'm not sure where the ferry's actually going, Gordon.
Well, he's having absolutely no sympathy for the fleet. I mean, they do have right of way, of course, but that was absolutely diabolical as far as the middle of the fleet is concerned.
Well, you'll see that the ferry is most likely going to run over this mark. They've really had one here. So while the rest of the fleet, whilst some parts of the fleet have to stop, some have gone round. We've got Our Marine on the right-hand side, along with Winning Group taking that right-hand turn. Yeah, so that ferry's just kind of taken up this mark.
So the skipper of the Narrabeen and his crew have run over the mark here.
It's about to get chopped up.
I haven't seen that before. And the rest of the fleet are going around the other gate mark. So nothing like a Manly ferry to upset proceedings here. Meanwhile, the race goes on, and those at the front of the fleet have taken off.
Yeah,
they're out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, have got Richer here. So we've got Finport Trade Finance in first place, still Rag and Famish closely following in second. Appliances Online. And then it's a little bit tricky to find out what's going on, but you can see the park up at the other mark. There's a whole bunch of boats that have had to go to that left-hand turn to the right of the course upwind, and kind of been relegated that option. The rest of the mark got taken away from them.
Olivia, what did you make of that? Was the master on the Manly ferry, he was pointing to another mark. Was he confused about which mark the fleet was going to?
No, he doesn't really have much regard for the sailing fleet, and the 18s do have to give way to them. They do display an orange diamond, meaning that they have right of way. However, I think that the first mate or the captain was actually pointing at those two tanker ships taking up their channel, so they're having to come to this eastern channel, which is unusual for them, but really was smack bang in the way of the 18-foot skiff markers. You would have thought he could have gone around a little bit, but he really just aimed straight at it.
Yes. It was a no-holds-barred, no-sympathy approach, you've got to say.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you get that on Sydney Harbour, and that's all part and parcel of it. I wouldn't have forecasted that to happen, but,
No.
you know, the race must go on.
You saw it live on candid camera on AeroMedia.
Well, we were right there, Gordon. We
Yeah.
could see the mark spinning as it got dragged along the boat.
Appliances Online, Brett Van Munster, Phil Marshall, Kurt Futuris.
Yeah, so they're smack bang in range here. They've got a little bit of pressure on their left-hand side. You'll see their main Their main sheet, their boom, only moving just slightly. Brett Van Munster in tune with his main sheet hand, Kurt Faturis. They've been sailing together for a while, as we've said, so they're in tune with each other. They'll be communicating about how much pressure they have in the sail, what the load is like, what angle Brett wants to sail, and whether they've got more power to hold on to in that main sheet.
And take us through the actual rolls here, the sail trimming of the main sheet hand and also the bowman.
Yeah, so you see Kurt Faturis in the middle. He's up and down with his trim and basically trying to hold on to as much power as possible. So they've got a very speed-driven roll in that main sheet roll because the main is the biggest sail on the boat. They're purely focused on speed. The bowman, however, has a little bit more time to look around. They've got the jib is the smaller sail. The trimming of the jib is in a cleat, so they don't have to hold on to the entire load of it. It basically drives the boat forward with the bow, so the bowman is able to turn around and have a little look about the strategy and the tactics, what's involved with this really tight racing.
Meantime, there is a ding-dong battle going on at the front of the fleet between Finport Finance and the Rag and Famish Hotel at North Sydney, and that margin's still going to be about 15 seconds.
Yeah, the Rag and Famish has sailed a fantastic work. We didn't watch too much of it on the early parts because we were stuck on the other side of the ferry. However, you know, they've done really well to still be right with Finport Trade Finance, who are on song today. They're really working well as a crew, in tune, sailing the boat perfectly upright, so there's not much drag. They're really sailing well.
And you've got to say there's nothing like a bit of old head experience. Not that I'm saying Keegan York is too old, but he knows the harbour well, and he's really taken advantage of all the lifts today in what has been a tricky breeze.
Yeah, they've sailed a really strategic race. They've had their heads out of the boat the whole time, so really looking at the environment. As we see Rag and Famish just rounding the top mark here. The Rag and Famish is not as experienced as Keegan in the Finport. However, they've been sailing really, really well today.
Well, they've just done a very nice, smooth spinnaker set, and now they take off, trailing by 15 seconds.
And they've got quite a bit of lead on the third boat in the fleet, which is Appliances Online, meaning that they can probably try and risk a little bit here against Finport and take some time out of them and potentially take the lead.
Tech 2 just went across our bow to the left-hand side of the course and beyond. Rag and Famish Smeg also beating up to that top mark. But it looks as though Finport Finance is going to jibe now and just applying a loose cover at the moment.
Yeah, if I was the Rag, I probably would have jibed at the same time as Finport, potentially tried to bring a new breeze pressure down to them. They don't have much to lose by throwing something different at Finport. Following them out here, they're probably not going to get around them. However, you know, these guys will be fantastically, they'll be very, very happy with a second place in the Australian National Championships.
I guess they're conceding that Finport Finance are just sailing beautifully to here today, and it's all about no mistakes now for Rag and Famish in second place. They've got a stranglehold on second place. They've just done a very nice jibe, and although the margin has opened up for Finport Finance, you've got to say Rag and Famish have sailed a brilliant race for Bryce Edwards, Rory Cox and Jacob Broom, and they really have very much their hand on second place at the moment. But what a day it's been for Finport Finance, Keegan York, Paddy Stenter and Dave Ewings. A lot of experience on board, and they are steaming down to the finishing line in the second race of these Australian National Championships for the 18-footers on an overcast Sydney Harbour at the moment. The sun did poke through at times, but it's been a nice southerly, a lot of east in the breeze, and the big rigs have stood up very well indeed.
Yeah, everyone had their big rig on today, so they had the maximum sail area that they could to try and hold on to as much speed and power as possible, both upwind and downwind when they have the spinnaker up. Matt Stenter and has been really on form recently. He's sailing fantastically. Every boat he steps in has been performing, and he's got a lot to contribute. No one's wearing gloves on these boats. It's something.
That's amazing. I mean, that is quite incredible because their hands must take a pounding.
Yeah, Matt has ginormous hands. He's just one of those people that will do anything to make the boat go faster, and he's an all-around top bloke, and Keegan's really worked quite well with Matt over the last few years. In saying that, Finport's in a really, really light piece of pressure. Rag and Famish is sailing quite hot, just about to come onto the right-hand side of your screen. This isn't over, Gordon.
It's not over. There was almost a little mistake there by Finport Finance in shaking out the main. That was sorted out, but meantime, Rag and Famish were coming across here. This is going to be very close.
Yeah, Rag and Famish got a really nice piece of pressure, that whole thing. So Finport has right of way over Rag and Famish, who are going to go for a jibe now. It means that Finport is going to be in some dirty air as they continue down to this finish line. There's not long to go. Within 30 seconds, they'll be across the finish line. However, there's still a little bit of tactics in play. If Rag and Famish were to jibe back, which they're doing, they're taking Finport's option away from them.
Well, it's all about no mistakes here.
Yeah, so Finport able, basically having a really slow jibe. Rag and Famish just dropping the main sheet, so therefore not accelerating around the bow. So a little bit of a mistake there from Rag and Famish and Finport, but it's Finport Trade Finance that takes the race win.
What a brilliant finish that was. How good was that?
That's
fantastic effort, Finport Finance, but Rag and Famish, did they take it too?
Yeah.
The leader, and it was almost a little mistake, 200 metres out from the finish. And that's where Rag and Famish was able to take advantage. Now let's look at the battle for the minors.
Yeah, so for third and fourth, we've got Appliances Online and Royal Oak Hotel 4 Pines. Appliances Online able to just stay a little bit ahead of Royal Oak, who have been able to jibe and potentially cross the finish line. It really is going to be a who's picked it better. It's we've got Appliances Online just ahead of the Royal Oak.
Gee.
Great racing here on Sydney Harbour, Gordon.
That was just amazing. A fantastic battle for the first placing and then for those minors. And now Tech 2 coming down stylishly just ahead of the Noakes group.
It does look effortless, doesn't it? Tech 2 taking 5th place in race 2 of the day.
And now the Noakes group. Sean Langman, they've got to be happy with that performance.
Yeah, it's a consistent performance from Noakes Sailing. I'm sure Sean, being the competitive person that he is, would have loved to have taken 2 race wins like Finport has done. But, you know, it's a 9-race series, and there's a lot more to go. This is only race 1 and 2.
Now the winning group.
Yeah, winning group coming in for 7th place. They looked like they were going to have a fantastic start. However, they were called over the line early and had to return behind the start line and restart the race.
And they'll be closely followed by Smeg. And then it was all about the Manly Ferry for the rest of the fleet.
Yeah, we did see a whole basically halt to the fleet. Unfortunately, half the fleet got caught the wrong side of that Manly Ferry incident at the bottom mark for the last time. The bottom mark was potentially chewed up by the ferry's engine. Not ideal for our fleet that was stuck behind and had to go to the other mark. So there are 2 bottom marks in the gate racing that we've got here, the Windward Leeward course. Unfortunate though.
Yes, it certainly was hair raising.
So we've got our Marine coming down to the finish. They're in basically the wind of their own. There's no one around them. They must have been able to scoot out from behind the ferry quite quickly, whereas the rest got caught.
Marcus Ashley Jones, Cam Gundy, who's the brother of Charlie, who was on board the Oak Double Bay 4 Pines, and Lewis Brake.
Yeah, so Lewis is an established sailor. He sailed 49ers and sailed the 18-foot skiff before. He's also been sailing a fin for the last few years. Also sailed on Team Maverick 49 in the 75th Sydney Hobart just a few weeks ago.
And Armarine Riviera, first-time sponsor last year. Very much welcomed by the 18-footers.
Yeah, so Simon Nern was skippering the Armarine last year and has handed over the reins to Marcus Ashley Jones. Coming down to the finish, we've got Birkenhead Point Marina. So Tom Anderson, Elliot Scarley and Tom Arkins. Tom Anderson, a fantastic bowman in the 18-foot skiffs, however, has taken on his own team for this year's season. Closely followed by Noakes Blue, so Yvette Heritage, getting caught on the other side of that ferry, but still being able to fend off the rest of the fleet as they came around.
And finishing in the top 10?
Just outside the top 10, if my numbers are correct, although,
Okay.
Gordon, they're not normally.
Yes.
I don't trust myself.
So I think she's just outside, and also Yandu having a
Ooh,
very
with
close
Vintech.
struggle here with Vintech. And Shaw and Partners just beating those two across.
Oh, I couldn't tell you who got the gong between Vintech and Yandu, Gordon. That was pretty tight.
Yeah, I'll give it to Vintech. John Winning probably won't approve of that. He'll tell me later.
Yeah, exactly. They've got the final 4 boats in this second race of the day. The Kitchen Maker Caesar Stone. I'm not sure that they'll be too happy with that result. However, you know, there's always room for improvement, and that ferry really threw a spanner in the works. Then we've got our Queensland team. I'm not going to try and say their name, Gordon.
Smith Lamnalco, Alex Watson, Ben
There we
Roxburgh,
go.
and Elliot Marr.
Closely
And then
followed by
Ilvey.
Ilvey. And then coming up the rear, we've got Dalzotto. Dalzotto being sponsor of the day today. These guys never give up. They are the epitome of the class. They're really, they come each week. They learn so much. They had a fantastic start to last week's race, however, unfortunately capsized at the bottom mark and couldn't quite recover from that.
Well, we do know that they have the loudest support crew on the ferry each week,
Yeah, they do.
Dalzotto.
Yeah.
So, and a special mention to the ferry, who are out there commentating. Greg Kay has
Yes.
been commentating for 16 years on the ferry. But that wraps up proceedings here on what has been a very eventful Sydney Harbour. We had everything today, didn't we? Particularly in that second race with the interception by the Manly ferry. And there's the Royale and all of the spectators on board. There's been a bit of betting on board, but who would have picked, I think, the winner today? What price would Finport Finance have been?
It would have been at about $4 or something like that. You know, they're always a
Yeah,
consistent
they're tough,
performer.
those bookies, aren't they? They don't give much away.
Yeah.
So there it is, Finport Finance, absolutely having a tremendous day on Sydney Harbour, taking the first 2 races of the Australian National Championship. Final comments from Olympic silver medalist Olivia Price.
Well, we've had a fantastic day on the harbour, and I keep saying fantastic because it really was extremely tough racing. We saw lead changes, and then we saw some teams excel in the tricky conditions. So I'm just so glad we were able to be out here and witness what was going on.
Okay, that wraps up our coverage on behalf of AeroMedia. Thanks to all the team on the Camera Cat, and I think we've seen it all today. It has been absolutely outstanding, and we hope you've enjoyed the coverage. So Gordon Bray and Olivia Price on behalf of the AeroMedia crew and our director